peace, progress, and prosperity. Always remember, you are not alone.
So, you just lost a loved one, someone very close to your heart, someone very dear to you, someone you can't get through your daily life without that person, and you don't know what to feel. You don't even know what you're feeling. You don't know how to feel. You don't know how to express yourself. Everything just seems, you just seem confused, lost, angry, sad, all these emotions at the same time, and it feels overwhelming. I'm sure some of us have this experience, and if you've never had this feeling, I would say, well, congratulations, you haven't been introduced to the very dark traumas of life. Please cherish the moments you have right now. Today we're going to be talking about navigating grief and loss in relation to your mental health as a man. Welcome again to the podcast that talks about topics that are forbidden for men in today's world. This is the Brother's Keeper podcast, and I am my brother's keeper. I'm your brother from a distant mother. My name is Onola Fatoba, and today we're going to be talking about how to take care of yourself when you're grieving. Let's get right to it. So to start with, we're going to be talking about the weight of grief. Grief is a complex emotion that often affects people differently. A lot of people tend to grieve in their own way, but there are certain barriers that that affects the way men grieve in today's world, and one of them is societal expectation of masculinity. Society believes that there's this unbroken stoicism, emotional stoicism, that you have to carry and bear as a man. Therefore, when you are grieving, you can't cry, you cannot show your weakness, you cannot let people know that something is wrong with you, that you just lost someone that you love. I don't think it should be that way. Anyway, that's another topic for another day. The next is the fear of vulnerability. This one is linked to that societal expectation of masculinity. You're scared that showing that vulnerability and expressing that grief will make you appear weak and less masculine in front of people. And I'd say it's actually a thing that cuts across board. It's not just with young men or old men. It's a men thing generally, so to speak. Now, there is socialization and the suppression of emotions. Now, society kind of teaches us to suppress our emotions. Apart from anger, the society kind of teaches us to suppress our emotions, and you can't cry, you can't show sadness. It is discouraged, it is frowned upon in our society. But you can express your anger and violence. I feel like that's a double standard that needs to be addressed. So this kind of upbringing makes it very difficult for men to express themselves or to even grieve properly. Another thing is communication barrier. A lot of men have problems communicating how they are feeling when they are grieving. Now, another thing is the stigma that is attached to, mental health. The stigma that is attached to communicating when you are grieving. The stigma that is attached to seeking help when you have mental health challenges. Also, there is that role conflict. We believe that men should traditionally be seen as protectors and providers. Therefore, they have this conflict. They're stuck in between worlds when they have to grieve and express themselves emotionally, but they are also supposed to be protectors, strong people, hectors, and providers. So it kind of makes them struggle the more when they are grieving. Now, there's also the external pressure to move on. I feel like this is one of those factors that messes things up beyond control. A lot of people want you to move on as fast as you can because whoever is dead, and life continues. And I feel like it depends on who dies. You don't get to move on that easy. I mean, if you're married to someone for 10, 15 years, God forbid, and that person dies, it's not going to be easy. You've probably had one or two kids, you've built your life and your businesses and your entire life around this person, and that person just disappears one day. And people expect you to move on in a year or two. I feel like that's quite unreasonable. Now, there's also the lack of emotional coping skills for men. Men lack a lot of emotional coping skills because they are limited. They are limited to emotional expressions. I mean, they are limited in emotional expressions. They can't express themselves emotionally. So there's no emotional coping skills for them. Also, there's internalized grief. I'm guilty of this one because when I lost my father, I kind of like swallowed it. I kind of like took it in. It was my first introduction to tragedy and trauma in my life. I just swallowed it and I let it sit inside. And trust me, that messed me up, badly. And today I'm still fighting some of the things that it left inside me. Now, the impact of these things on your mental health is simple. Your inability to express grief and emotions can contribute to mental health issues like depression, anxiety, substance abuse, consistent stress. These are things that we've been talking about on this channel. So we need to learn to develop healthy emotional, coping mechanisms when we are grieving. Nobody wants to experience trauma or the loss of a loved one all of a sudden. Well, this is life, it happens. So how do you deal with it? That's what we're talking about next. So to start with, we need to encourage open conversations when it comes to grief and loss. We're going to explore some of the importance of allowing men to grieve, and we'll emphasize the power of acknowledgement and sharing your feelings. So let's talk about expressing emotions authentically, especially when you're grieving. One of the mental health benefits is that it helps you develop healthy, a healthy state of mind, a healthy mindset, and keeps you away from developing mental health issues, depression, anxiety, loss of hope and passion. Also, it reduces emotional suppression. Like, you don't have to suppress everything. You don't have to keep it all inside. You don't have to suffer in silence. Then it helps you develop strong coping mechanisms, strong coping skills, like expressing your emotions openly. Expressing your emotions openly enhances your communication skills. It enables you to connect with your loved one and people who are also grieving like you. Now, it helps you create emotional connection. And then there's that validation and acceptance. Like, when you communicate, there's that you can't just invalidate someone's feelings by not letting them communicate. Communication helps you, it helps you, accept what you're feeling, the situation, and it also validates your emotions. What you're feeling, you're supposed to feel that thing that you're feeling. Now, it also reduces the stigma attached to emotional expression, especially when it comes to men. There's that, if we encourage on authentic emotional expression, it helps reduce the stigma around talking about how you feel. And then other men, men can support other men who are like going through stuff. There can be a community that helps you go through your process of healing and help you get through the grief and the pain. It also helps you heal effectively, and it helps with your personal growth. When you communicate your emotions authentically, you kind of like shrug the burden off, like you take the load and then drop it, and that helps to your with your personal growth, because it facilitates some kind of self-awareness and emotional development inside you that it's not something that can come to you ordinarily, except you have been through that process and you have learned through that that grief, that experience.